While we're on the topic of religion, let's talk about the Vatican. And the reason why we've gotten here, by the way, Christopher, is because we have analysts and editorial writers like Colbert King and Frank Rich, who were painting a picture that caused us to really take a look at this and make sure it was being played out in a fair manner. Let's talk about the Catholic Church, because there have been a lot of revelations over the past week. It appears the current Pope may have known about the recent revelations of abuse of children at the hands of members of the clergy. And my question to you, especially since you've written about this and you say that justice is coming, you're not that much of a fan of a Catholic Church, do you think we need to be doing something in this country to address this? How do you think this is going to play out?
Well, do you mean, should we in this country, I mean, have you not read what's been happening in Wisconsin?
Yes, I have.
A school for children who can only use sign language. And 200 of them have their childhoods completely wrecked by this priest. And entreaties are addressed to the man who is now Pope, Cardinal Ratzinger, the man who was saying at the time that the only problem with the scandal was there was a press campaign against the church. The abuse was not the problem. The torture, the rape, only the revelation of it.
Christopher,
was the problem. Nothing happens except that he forgives the priest who asks for forgiveness before he dies.
Let me ask you,
this is a scandal.
Well, let me ask you about this. It is a scandal. Let me ask you, if you spend enough time in courtrooms in this country, invariably you see people charged on the edges of a crime with being an accessory, either before or after the fact. And for several years I've been wondering, in the example of Cardinal Law from Boston, who now has a pretty terrific parish right outside the gates of the Vatican in Rome, why he and why should not the Pope be charged with being an accessory before or after the fact?
Well, you take the wind out of my sails, Mike, as you have before. I mean, maybe you remember with our colleague and mutual friend Chris Matthews a few years ago, I raised this question: why isn't Cardinal Law being at least interviewed by the forces of law and order? And the same thought obviously occurred to the Cardinal and to the Vatican, because he left the jurisdiction, was given a sinecure in Rome. He runs the San Maria Maggiore, if I'm not mistaken, and hasn't been back since, and voted in the election for the Vicar of Christ on Earth, as Catholics call the Pope. And I wrote then, and I believe now, that the fatal taint went straight to the top at that point. And now we have, as the head of the church, someone who's personally as well as individually, as well as institutionally responsible for knowing of this, covering it up, and protecting not the children but the predators.
Is your sense, Christopher, that there's a fundamental belief inside of the Catholic Church that they are truly above the law, that rape and torture inside of the Catholic Church is fine as long as it stays inside of the church? Do they actually believe that, as far as you can tell?
Well, I don't care whether they believe it or not. It's out of their hands now. That we have to find there must somewhere be in this country a district attorney or a prosecutor who will stand up for the children first and will not do as so many civil authorities have and give the church a free pass.
You know, of course, I had to summon Christopher Hitchens back from the dead, of course, to give his opinion about the issue with the Catholic Church's pedophilic history, and boy, did he have something to say about it. It's you and
The U.S. Bishops' Conference has announced that its executive committee has outlined 3 goals to avoid repeating what they have described as sins and failures of the past. To that end, the bishops are promising, as they have before, independence and lay involvement. The 3 goals are the investigation of questions surrounding Archbishop McCarrick and opening of new and confidential channels to report complaints against bishops, and advocacy for more effective resolution of future complaints. Joining me now with his thoughts on this, the grand jury report, and the ongoing sex abuse scandal sparked by disgraced Archbishop Theodore McCarrick, is the former prefect of the Apostolic Signatura from Rome, Cardinal...
I'm sorry, but if you want a fair and balanced answer to the issue, you go to the scientific empirical evidence, not the source of the problem, especially somebody who's wearing black robes and a big heavy cross.
People in the church that have your experience, having led the Vatican Supreme Court, essentially, the Signatura, you've dealt with a lot of these issues. You've presided over and been a part of these trials. There's a presumption in this statement by Cardinal DiNardo on behalf of the U.S. bishops that Cardinal McCarrick and his actions are a singular problem, as if he's an aberration isolated. Do you believe that to be the case, that he's alone in his misdeeds among the episcopacy?
May I remind you of the Australian Royal Commission? Yeah, this is an organization-wide issue happening all over the world, not just in the U.S., so to speak. And I know these people at EWTN, they're going to say, oh, well, it was just one person, one little incident. No, it's not. It's multiple different incidents spanning all over the world.
I don't know what the presumption is of Cardinal Leonardo or other bishops, but it doesn't seem reasonable to me if these accusations are true, namely that such horrible acts were committed in a number of dioceses and over a number of years. It doesn't seem reasonable to me to think that other prelates didn't know about it and failed to take the proper action. And of course, if the matters were properly related to the Holy See itself has to answer with regard to the manner in which these accusations were handled. And that means that persons who were negligent in handling properly these crimes, which caused the greatest harm to the victims and to the whole church, and not to speak of the grave offense to our Lord himself, be properly disciplined.
Well, I'm sorry, but when your organization is guilty of committing sexual abuse problems, the state should be the one stepping in, taking action by taking away your organization's property and making sure you cannot own schools or hospitals when you come back, and by charging you $3 billion in US dollars in penal charges.
We are in the face of a very grave crisis, which is touching at the very heart of the church, because our Lord acts on behalf of the flock through.
I don't care. The organization of the Vatican is the guilty one, and we have been knowing for years. It isn't a single case issue. I myself have been knowing about it ever since I was a little boy, and I was a Catholic before I became an atheist. And when I was a Catholic, every Catholic boy that I knew about this issue. Trust me, there are documentaries on this, and of course, the Catholic Church had to demote their own head of their organization because of the sex abuse scandals, and now they're sweeping it under the rug like, it's just one little thing that they don't really think about. But wait a second, it's not just one little thing, it's something that has happened all over the globe with the same organization. So basically, the church isn't doing anything by sweeping it under the rug except for hurting itself. Which I guess you could say is a good thing, because it needs to be fucking hurt.
I want to ask you for a moment, do you think Rome appreciates the magnitude of what is happening here? And if you could advise the Pope now, what would you tell him to do or advise him to do? I don't know how the matter is being viewed here, but if I were asked, I would simply say that the Catholic Church in the United States is undergoing one of the possibly the worst crises that it's ever experienced, at least among the worst crises, and that it has to be recognized and it has to be dealt with in a thorough manner, which is faithful to the Church's moral law and to the Church herself and to the office of the bishops.
No, the Catholic Church needs to be kicked out and charged $3 billion, starting with the federal investigations of the Catholic Church in all 50 states across the U.S.
Your Eminence, to my eye, there seems to be a predatory network at play. And not only in the United States. We see it in Chile, you saw it in Colombia, we see it in Europe. And they are primarily focused on young boys and men. How do you uproot this? Well, I think we have to recognize that there, as Our Lady warned us at Fatima about an apostasy from the faith, I believe that there's been a practical apostasy from the faith with regard to all the questions involving human sexuality, and principally it starts with the idea that there can be legitimate sexual activity outside of marriage, which of course is false.
Honestly, I will say this. I don't agree with the Catholic Church on a lot of things, especially this, but I will, of course, say this again. What do you do if you are a priest and you've been diagnosed with hyperspermia and you have to ejaculate twice a day, or else you are going to have pains in your rectum? No, I don't support pedophilia, but I also don't support the way the Catholic Church goes about punishing those who have sex with consenting adults, whether or not they are married.
Whether it's in the seminaries, where this is coming from, but this perversion of sexual morals, which is so pervasive in society, we have to admit that it's also in the church. And even I've seen people suggesting that in the past church discipline, or that now church discipline doesn't regard consensual activity between adults as crimes with persons of the same sex. But this is completely false. The church has always thought that this was among the gravest of sins that a cleric could commit, and normally led to his reduction from the clerical state.
You know, men in prison are forced to abstain from sex. Therefore, they rape other men because of it. I wonder if the Catholic Church is ruling that priests should abstain from sex is the reason to why priests are raping young boys.
You bring up a good point, and as an esteemed canon lawyer, I want to get your opinion on this. In the 1917 Code of Canon Law, it says, and I'll put it up on the screen, if an offense against the Sixth Commandment with minors under 16 of age be admitted, or if adultery, rape, bestiality, sodomy, pimping, or incest with first-degree relations be carried out, they are to be, the clerics, suspended, declared infamous, and deprived of every office, benefit, dignity, and function that they might have, and in the more serious cases, deposed. The 1983 version of the canon law says this: a cleric who is offended in other ways against the Sixth Commandment, it goes on to say, is to be punished with just penalties, not excluding dismissal from the clerical state if the case so warrants. Is it time to update that part of the canon? I would say so, especially in light of what we are seeing now in the church, to the grave harm of so many souls, and really also to the scandal of the world in general, that the church, which should be a beacon of light, is involved in such a crisis. I believe that we need to return to the more explicit and detailed language of the 1917 Code. I don't believe that the 1983 Code intended to change the discipline or to be more relaxed about it, but I think that the language is not adequate.
See, this organization needs to be kicked out of the U.S. It is basically blaming LGBT priest, the sexually repressed priest, from the things the Catholic Church has been allowing, and sweeping all this under the rug, even though they've been knowing this for decades. And they've had to demote their own head of their organization because of it.
Should priests and bishops who have engaged in sexual immorality with adults be removed from office or even removed from the priesthood? Yes, when these cases or accusations have been carefully investigated and the proper canonical process has been conducted, if they have failed according to what the Code of Canon Law provides, yes, they should certainly be removed from office, and in some cases, depending on the gravity of the sins committed, they should also be reduced to the lay state. Like I said, the Roman Pontifical had these rights for centuries in order to deal with just such situations.
God, this guy is such a homophobe. Can't it get any worse than what this guy is saying? I guess there is a reason why you don't trust men with, of course, black robes and a big, heavy golden cross on them. And this is possibly the reason.
I think today sometimes we have a difficult time calling right what is good, and what is wrong, and we need to return to some clarity of approach in these matters for the sake of the good of the whole church.
I will also say this. We are better than the Catholic Church. We do not need to appeal to black-robed cardinals to tell us what to do. We do it on our own because we know it's right. We do things because we know they're right, and we don't need authorities to appeal to. If you like the video, you can comment on it, and you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. I will also let you know that my Patreons, usually a few days before, whenever I write this script, get my scripts sometime in advance. Thank you.